بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا كثيرا طيبا باركا فيه والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق والسيد سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue reading from the 40 principles of the religion, Al-Arba في أصول الدين by Imam Al-Ghazali رحمه الله, and we are at page 72, the very last paragraph. I believe that we have read was the following: when he is returned to this transient world that is like a shadow, meaning that when you are absorbed by you are really into dhikr, you are into remembrance, to the degree that you are neither aware of the fact that you are making dhikr. You're not aware of your surroundings, so people might talk to you and you'll not be aware. You're not deaf, but you'll not be aware. Things happen in front of you and you will not see them. You'll not pay attention. So that's the highest state, when you are face to face with the pure truth in everything. Then you return at one point to this transient world that is like a shadow. He looks at the creation with the look of compassion for them, because they are veiled from seeing the beauty of the Holy's presence. He is amazed at their satisfaction with shadows and their subservience to the world of delusion and imagination. He is present with them in person, but his heart is absent. He is amazed by their presence, and they are amazed by his absence. And it's going to be a very difficult thing. You cannot reconcile. You can be merciful as it is. You can be compassionate to the people who are stuck in the world of shadows and delusion. They did not see what you have seen. They did not experience. They did not taste. And if it's something that is really a matter of taste, ذوق, you cannot transfer it through communication. It's almost like a long distance call, but I mean something else, of course. You cannot really taste that. You have to exert effort and you have to reach it on your own. This is the fruit of the core of remembrance. Its starting point is the remembrance of the tongue, then the remembrance of the heart by compulsion, then the remembrance of the heart naturally, then the remembered overwhelming the heart, and the erasure of remembrance. This is the secret of his words, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Whoever would like to frolic in the meadows of paradise, he should perform much remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. من أحب أن يرتع في رياض الجنة فليكثر ذكر الله تعالى. Then it is followed by another statement. Indeed, it is the secret of his statement, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The hidden remembrance is better than the remembrance that the guardian angels hear 70 times. So it's 70 folds better. I will mention we have two issues here. One of them is the meaning, and the other one is the chain of narrators. It has been considered, judged to be sound by Ibn Hibban, but it has been rendered da'if. We talk about the chain of narrators by Ibn Ma'in. Now we said that it is not ليس بثابت as a hadith, that it's not it cannot be attributed with certitude to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. and Al-Ajluni mentioned it in كشف الخفاء, meaning that it is not really a sound tradition. Imam Al-Ghazali continues. We said there is another issue which is basic. What's the meaning of hidden? Okay. Does it mean, one of the meanings is that it could be simply the now it's really the affair of the heart. The tongue itself is not the, you can simply say right now La ilaha illallah, and it could pass by your heart the same remembrance, and nobody will hear you. In fact, this is why they mention that the notion of kind of khalwa with being with people, because you could still remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in any setting. So you're having your khalwa while you are in the midst of people sometimes. Know that every remembrance that you feel in your heart, the guardian angels hear. Indeed, their sense is comparable to your sense, and in this is a hidden secret. To the extent that if your remembrance is oblivious to your sense, as a consequence of your having gone entirely to the remembered, your remembrance is then oblivious to the sense of the guardian angels. That's the meaning of khafi here. As long as the heart senses remembrance and pays attention to it, it is turning away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is not removed from hidden association, shirk, khafi, unless you become immersed in the one, the truth. Now, the English translation now about what he's going to say about the of this being توحيد, حتى تصير مستغرقا بالواحد الحق. You become immersed in the one, the truth. فذلك هو التوحيد. فذلك هو التوحيد. The translation of فذلك هو التوحيد, this is unification. I find it extremely problematic. This is the, you might say, this is the real bearing witness to the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the real witnessing of the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the real testimony to the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Shuhud in a sense. But unification is always about multiple parties, not oneness. That's what I think. The same can be said for realization. So this is for ma'rifah, for knowledge. Whoever seeks realization for realization's sake has merely proclaimed the letter. Whoever genuinely finds it, it is as if he has not found it. Rather, he finds the realized in it. Hence, he is the one who is positioned for the reality of communion and has entered the circle of the holy. فهو الذي استمكن من حقيقة الوصال. Now you are in a sense you have reached, you are being connected, you are not mahrum. وحل بحبوحة حظيرة القدس. Okay. And has entered the circle of the holy. تصير مستغرقا is that communion. Okay. Is that communion? Or are we talking about something that is borrowed from, let's say, Christian theology, because in Christianity, that's the of course, even if you write it with a, it depends how you write it, like with a capital C, that's the Holy Communion, and it does involve the consecrated bread and wine sharing, because when they receive the and let's say in on Sunday during mass or even service, the priest would say uh, to the Christian who's receiving the piece of the biscuit and the wine, to eat the flesh, the body of Jesus Christ, peace upon him, and to drink his blood. And that's how his body and his blood is shared. And this is how communion take place. Um, so uh, being in union with that, and I would say that's really again, it's a problematic language. Okay, you may say, why are these unveilings exclusive to the state of self oblivion? Know then that investigation into the matter is lengthy. If you reflect, however, then you will not fail to comprehend that the senses and fluctuations of the self and its desires draw to the sensory world, the world of falsity and delusion. This is why the pure truth is revealed at death, since the authority of the senses and fancies that tame the heart to the lowly world ceases. And of course, in the Quran, فَبَصَرُكَ الْيَوْمَ حَدِيدٌ, and hadid is not iron. Hadid had keen sight. You see what you did not see before. You are not allowed to see, and now you are allowed to see. You have to see. If the authority of the senses is limited by sleep, you become aware of something of the unseen according to the degree of your readiness, reception, and aspiration. However, it is by means of an image that needs to be interpreted. I do not hold that you have never experienced a true dream that has given you a glimpse of some future matter, albeit by means of an image. For the imagination does not subside with sleep, even if the senses are stagnant. As a result, awareness is weakened and is not free of corrupted images. As for self oblivion, it expresses a state in which the senses are stagnant and do not function, and imagination is static and thus does not muddle. If some meager portion of the imagination remains, it has no effect other than to imitate what is manifested from the dimension of the holy, such that the prophets, the angels, sanctified souls assume imaginary forms. We instruct you about these affairs so that you long to become from the people of mystical experience, and if not, then from the people of knowledge, and if not, from the people of faith. Allah raises by degrees those of you who believe and those who have been given knowledge. And this is, of course, Quranic. Be aware of being from the deniers of these affairs. In that case, you will meet severe punishment when you are shown the truth during the agony of death that you were avoiding, and it is said to you, you were heedless of this. We have removed your visor, and your vision is keen today. فبصرك اليوم حديد. Know that faith, knowledge, and mystical experience are three levels that are far from one another. Indeed, it is conceivable that someone who is impotent, for example, may affirm the existence of sexual desire in someone else by accepting that from someone whom he has a good opinion of and does not accuse of lying. This is faith. It is also conceivable that he knows of its existence in someone else through decisive evidence, which is knowledge as understood through analogy. For example, by considering his own desire for food and comparing it to sexual desire. Yet all of that is far from perceiving the reality of sexual desire existing for him. Sickness is also like this. The layman knows about it and believes it. The doctor knows it through decisive evidence, which is knowledge. Yet, as long as he does not become sick, he does not attain experience. The same is true of proclaiming self oblivion and unification. Fana. Okay. And we spoke about the problem of unification, and we speak about كذلك القول في الفناء في التوحيد. It's really the oneness of uh, witnessing the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in everything. Experience is by witnessing. Knowledge is by analogy, and faith is by acceptance. That thinks well of the claimant without accusation of lying. Therefore, strive to become one of the people of witnessing. For information is not like seeing directly. And it's the phrase in Arabic is at least it's known to those who read these things. فليس الخبر كالمعاينة. Seeing for yourself is different from reading or listening to the news. You may say you have made a big deal of the matter of remembrance. So is it better than reciting the Quran? Then know that reciting the Quran is better for all creation except the one going to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for remembrance is better for the one going to Allah in all of his states in the beginning and some of his states in the end. Indeed, the Quran is comprised of different types of knowledge, states, and guidance to the path. So long as the slave needs to refine his morals and attain knowledge, the Quran is more appropriate for him. If he passes beyond that, and remembrance overwhelms his heart to the point that he expects it to overflow and immerse him, then constant remembrance is more appropriate for him. The Quran will attract his thoughts and release him into the meadows of paradise. However, the one who is desirous and going to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should not turn to paradise and its meadows. Rather, he should make his aspiration a single goal and his remembrance a single remembrance until he perceives the level of self-oblivion and immersion. For this reason, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَذِكْرُ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ. The remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is surely greater. Likewise, is he who reaches the level of immersion yet does not remain established upon it. If he returns to himself, then reciting the Quran will benefit him. This is a rare, valuable state, like red sulfur, that is talked about yet never found. If this is the case, then reciting the Quran is better, absolutely, because it is better in any state, except in the state of someone who is distracted from the speech of by the speaker. The core of the Quran is knowledge of its speaker and his beauty and immersion in him. The Quran leads and guides to him, and whoever is on the verge of attaining the objective does not pay attention to the path of attainment. You may ask, which remembrance are the best? Then know that the best, as we have mentioned, is for the remembered to overcome the heart, and it is one without any multiplicity from which to choose the best. It is the essence of communion and unification. Again, uh, so it's the essence of being connected and witnessing the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whereas separation and multiplicity come only before that. For as long as you are in the position of remembering with the tongue or the heart, this is where remembrance may be divided into the best and other than the best. Yeah, second best. Here, the best is according to the attributes that are referred to or are referred in the remembrances. The attributes and reported names in reference to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are divided into that which is literal in reference to the slaves and figurative in reference to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, such as the patient, the grateful, the merciful, and the vengeful. And that which is literal in reference to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala and metaphorical when used in reference to other than Him. Among the best remembrances is Allah, there is no God but Him, the living, the self-subsistent. Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyu al-qayyum. Since it contains Allah's greatest name. Speaking about Ismillah al-Azam, the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah's greatest name is in the throne verse, Ayat al-Kursi, and the first verse of Surah Al-Imran. The first verse, if he means the other than Huruf al-Muqatta'a, it has the same wording like the beginning of أعوذ بالله السميع من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألف لام ميم الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم. So this verse is similar to the to its equivalent in the verse of the throne, Ayat al-Kursi. These two verses do not share anything except this, and it has a secret whose mention is too subtle for your understanding. The amount that it is possible to indicate is that your statement, there is no God but Allah, La ilaha illallah, gives a sense of unification. Basically, you get the sense of Tawheed. يشعر بالتوحيد. The meaning of Oneness in both essence and status are literal in reference to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not figurative. It is a reference to other than Him that they are metaphorical and figurative. The same applies to the living, Al-Hayy, for indeed its meaning is He who senses Himself and knows Himself, whereas the dead is He who has no knowledge of His essence. This is also literal in reference to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not figurative. وكذلك الحي فإن معنى الحي هو الذي يشعر بذاته ويعلم ذاته، والميت هو الذي لا خير له ولا خبر له من ذاته، وهذا أيضا حق الله تعالى غير مؤول. The self-subsistent gives the sense of his subsisting in himself. القيوم يكون قائما بذاته وأن كل شيء قيامه به، and that the subsistence of everything is through him. This too is literal for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not figurative. It does not exist for other than him. Rather, it is not even conceivable. As for other names that indicate actions such as the merciful, the fair, the just, and others, they are beneath those that indicate attributes because attributes are the source of action. The attribute is the basis, and the action is the consequence. On the other hand, the attributes that signify omnipotence, omniscience, will, speech, hearing, and sight are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from His established attributes, for which it is believed that only the apparent sense is understood. How preposterous that would be! What is understood from their apparent sense are matters that are relative to the attributes of a human being: his speech, power, knowledge, will, hearing, and sight. These attributes, however, possess realities that are impossible to establish for human beings. You should therefore extract from these terms some sort of figurative interpretation. This in turn alerts you to the understanding that these words are applied exclusively to something much greater. You come closer to this by saying, Glory to Allah. All praise is for Allah. There is no God but Allah. Allah is the greatest, because glory to Allah is for sanctification, which is literal in reference to Him, and indeed is a reality that is not conceivable except for Him. Saying all praise is for Allah gives a sense of ascribing all blessings to Him. It is literal, as He is literally the sole creator of all actions without any figurative interpretation. He alone, subhanahu wa ta'ala, is worthy of praise, since none can be associated with Him in His action by any means, just as the pen has no association with the writer in deserving accolades for the beauty of his handwriting. Know that everyone besides him, from whom you see a blessing, is subjected to him like the pen. This illustration should instruct you about this of his uniqueness in deserving praise. As for saying there is no God but Allah, you already know that it signifies true oneness, he says here in translation unification. Your statement, Allah is great, or Allah is greatest. In fact, Allahu Akbar, uh, it is literally God. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God is greater than. In Arabic, it's wholesome. In English, you have to complete it. But it's understood Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater than everything else. Does not mean that He is greater than another God. So when it's time for the prayer, Allahu Akbar, you hear basically the muadhin calling for the prayer. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. He's greater than the work in your hand. Does not mean if you are a surgeon and you are operating someone, you drop, he stops, doing the surgery. That's not the meaning. But if whatever you are doing, and it's not vital in the absolute sense at that particular moment, you'll find a moment to pray. You'll find a moment to pray. I met someone once in Washington D.C. and he told me that he prays uh, all all his prayers practically, and he does not pray during the day at work. Only when he goes home. That's that's sad, really. That's sad. You have your lunch hour. No matter what, you are allowed to go to the bathroom. Why not basically allowing yourself? But it reflects a certain state of weakness. Demand, and not only for your own sake, for the sake of every Muslim who will work at the same offices in the future. Establish a norm where people have their time and space, and maybe a little place where they could perform wudu and what have you, depending on the context. There is none with him besides him, subhanahu wa ta'ala, for it even to be said that he is greater than all else other than him. It is a light from the lights of his power. The light of the sun relative to the sun is not in a position of togetherness such that it can be said that it is greater than it. Rather, it is in the position of subjugation. Instead, the meaning of the statement is that he is greater than what the senses can grasp, and his majesty is comprehended by reason and analogy. He is greater than ever having his reality comprehended by other than him, greater than being truly known by other than him. For indeed, no one knows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in reality except Allah. The pinnacle of the slave's knowledge is for him to know that it is impossible for him to truly know him. And no one completely knows this except a prophet or a perpetually truthful person. As for the Prophet ﷺ, it is expressed in his statement, I cannot fully praise you. You are as you have praised yourself. Subhanallah. As for the truthful one, he said, the inability to comprehend is comprehension. العجز عن درك الإدراك إدراك. If you yearn for some traditional verification of this meaning, I reject my statement that no one truly knows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except Allah, then seek knowledge of His reality through decisive evidence from the book. المقصد الأسنى في شرح معاني أسماء الله الحسنى. The radiant objective in explaining the meanings of Allah's beautiful names. For now, this amount of allusion to the secrets of remembrance and the best of those remembrances will suffice you. ويكفيك الآن هذا القدر من الرموز إلى أسرار الذكر وأفضل الأذكار منها. Inshallah, tomorrow we'll read the seventh principle on the outer actions, which is number 17, seeking the lawful, the halal. Inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.